guys? Welcome to part 2 of the Spider-Man Trilogy Discussion, and since we got done with part 1, and if you guys haven't checked it out, you know what, click the annotation link below, and start from there. But for those of you guys that have had watched part 1, enjoy this review / discussion of Spider-Man 2. Now, okay, the film takes place at least a couple of years after the first one. Peter, he's getting late to class, he's getting late to work, he's getting late to Mary Jane's little plays and all. Because he's being Spider-Man, and if you're a superhero, you're gonna have to... I have my respects for that. When you're being a superhero, it's kind of hard to balance up stuff. But then again, I don't really know. I'm not a superhero. But, you know what? That's how it kind of starts off. People are kind of starting to disbelieve on him a little bit. Being dependable on stuff. He's even late to be in class with, Dr. Kirk Connors. Who, in my opinion, I'll get started with the cast about right now. Or the characters, at least. Now, Peter Parker in this movie, from the end of the first film, he says he doesn't want to be with Mary Jane because he doesn't want her to... He doesn't want her to know because he doesn't want her to get hurt because he's Spider-Man, and that's why he didn't want to be with her in the first film. And I got that, and I have my respects for the first film. But in this one, when he finds out that she's engaged to John Jameson, which I'm pretty sure all of you guys know is the son of J. Jonah Jameson. When he finds out she got engaged to him, he tries his best to try to change MJ's mind so that way he can be with her. And okay, was that Peter, like the Peter Parker we knew from the comics? Or at least in my case, even in Spectacular Spider-Man, I know he didn't like MJ, but when it came to Gwen, okay, I'm getting off track here. Spectacular Spider-Man, though, on a whole other topic. I'll get into that maybe in a future video or so, but that's what I'm saying, that's not the Peter we knew. He was just being a douchebag. Let's just go with that. He's not even trying to be there as a friend. He's like, no. Be with me, MJ. Be with me. I love you. I love you. And I'm like, okay, Peter. No. Don't do that. Okay. And, the other thing is, Mary Jane Watson. When she gets engaged to John, she's like, no, Peter. I'm already engaged. Don't talk me out of it. But the minute she finds out that Peter is Spider-Man, she starts to have mixed feelings about him. And the thing is that she breaks up with the guy via letter on her wedding day. I'm like, really? You couldn't just tell him on the day before, in person? You had to break up with him on the day through a letter? That is what we call a bitch. Plain textbook definition of the word. If you think I'm wrong, go get your textbook, read the definition, and tell me if I'm wrong. If anybody's thinking or denying this fact. Okay, now we got those two out of the way. Peter being a douchebag and Mary Jane being a bitch. Next we have Harry. Now, Harry, okay, unlike the first film, he's kind of trimmed down a little bit more in the movie. You see him in the beginning, little bits of him in the middle, and at least towards the end you see him again. So he's kind of best way I can put it. But, his character, just from the end of the first film, he has that hatred for Spider-Man. He wants Spider-Man to pay for, his father's death. Which I forgot to mention in part 1 that, William Dafoe did a good job as Green Goblin. I'm just saying, he did a good job, but he seemed more scary as Norman than he did with Green Goblin. Just saying. Okay, but aside from that, Harry has that vengeance in him, like he wants to kill Spider-Man because he killed his dad. Well, at least that's what he thinks. Now, when he finds out that Peter's Spider-Man, he's like, shit. It was you this whole time? You killed my dad? And this is where I think, at least in some way, the second film kind of stands out. Because when Harry hears the goblins, because there's that laughter at the very end, and Harry is like, what the hell? And then he tries going down, well, I think he's downstairs or something, and he hears his dad, and his dad's in the mirror, like, and Harry's like, I thought you were dead, and then his dad's like, I'm alive in you, Harry. And he's like, since you know the truth now, avenge me. And Harry just refuses, and his dad's like, avenge me, and Harry's like, no, he throws a knife at the mirror, obviously, and he finds the laboratory of the Green Goblin. And he knows that his dad was the Goblin now. So, that was just a little tease for Spider-Man 3, which at the time, I was getting hyped up for, because I was like, oh, this might actually be pretty cool. But I'll get into that in part 3, but you know what? I'm going to still talk. Otto Octavius is one of the new people we have in the movie, him and Dr. Kirk Connors. Now, the thing about Doc Ock, I mean, you know, I don't remember much about him from the comics, but, you know, he's supposed to be cold-hearted, you know, a scientist. He doesn't give a shit. He just wants his stuff to get done. His, the coronium thing, oh, something like that. I don't know what it was, but it's something along those lines, like he's trying to build, like, this little sun ray thing, and it goes wrong. Like, okay, the thing is that, in the film, he's not cold-hearted, he's more like a sympathetic character, and I think the reason why Sam Raimi did that is because, like, you know, he wanted to make Doc Ock, like, go to a broader audience, like, you know, so the kids could get the toys, and all that stuff. So, Doc Ock, I mean, you had changes to him, and I thought it was okay, but the thing is that, at the very end, he turns into this good guy, and, okay, I was like, seriously, don't make him a sympathetic crybaby at the end. Seriously. I mean, you know what? Generally, some people just remain bad. No one turns back to good. Just saying, well, then again, the tentacle kind of did mess with his brain, so I guess he's just trying to get back to himself, so Doc Ock, okay. That's all I have to say. Kirk Connors, the thing is that Peter and Kurt are supposed to have, like, this teacher-student bond. But instead they gave that to Doc Ock and Peter, which, I mean, you know what, I was a little obligated at the time, but I'm just like, you know what, I guess it's okay now that I'm rewatching it. But the thing is that with this film, you know what, there were two plots. The one was Peter losing his powers, which was like the main plot line, and I thought that was really, really good. In my opinion, I kind of thought that's what made Spider-Man 2 better than 1. But then there's one other key factor that kind of reduces 2 in a way, which was Peter's and MJ's relationship. Like, remember how but this is kind of like what I mentioned before, like, you know, Peter trying to get MJ, and she's like, no, but then when she finds out he's Spider-Man, she wants to be with him. And then the other thing is, like, you know, she's like running, she's like, oh, Peter, I love you, now let's share kisses, oh. Ugh, don't even get me started. But, I mean, you know what, as a film, it was better than 1. However, as an adaptation, I feel like 1 was a lot better in a way, because it was it felt more like a little more closer to the comics. Because I mean, regardless, Peter having less time in high school, like I even timed this too, but apparently the high school thing was only for about 15 minutes, so I was fine with 1 in its shape and its form, because I mean, you know, regardless of, like, you know, how much of a disappointment it was as an adaptation, it was still good as a film. Same thing with this one, but like I mentioned before, 2 as a film, it's better than 1. As an adaptation, 1's better so far. And I guess that pretty much ends my discussion / review on part 2 of the Spider-Man Trilogy for Spider-Man 2. And, oh my god, guys, you know what we're about to get to next? Part 3 for Spider-Man. Yes, guys. So, just, you know what? Just wait until part 3